Well, it's late in the evening, but better late than never, I guess. And I want to welcome Pat, who has been romping around and having a hell of a good time. Are you well now, Pat, or are you
Oh
exhausted
yeah,
from seeking out pleasure?
yes, I was away in Spain for a fortnight there,
Woo!
and then and then arrived back to. I left Spain, Jude, on what day was it? Tuesday. I left a wee place outside Torrevieja, and it was 24 degrees. And I came
Oh,
back. I landed in Belfast, and I came home, and it was -5.
uh,
So there, what's that? 29 degrees difference?
oh, God. Shock to the system. Shock to the system.
Absolutely.
Do you feel you have like a battery, you stored up energy from spending the time in Spain?
The only decent thing about it is, I know I should point out, my wife is possibly she's the greatest at finding cheapo flights you'll ever come across. But anyway, nobody wants to go anywhere, the sort of the week after Christmas,
Hmm.
because all the kids are going back to school
Yeah,
and
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
So we went out to Spain. Now, it was a very mixed bag. The first day we arrived, it was 22, 23, and the next couple of days was dropped down to, I think, no, it never went into single figures, sorry, but it went 12 and 14, so it wasn't sort of balmy or anything like that. But you know what it does? It breaks up a sort of a Donegal winter.
Aye, it breaks up in winter anywhere in this island of ours, or even in Mother Britain as well. So anyway, welcome back, Pat, and I will be looking to see the benefits you've derived from soaking and all that. What is it that you get vitamin D or
Yeah,
something from the sun?
vitamin D, apparently. I
Aye,
hope so.
good for the body and
Uh,
good for the brain. Okay, so let's start with the DUP. The DUP, I gather, had a pretty important meeting today. Was it with the 12 apostles meeting?
it's like the 12 apostles that make up the board of the leadership of the DEP. Were
Yeah.
having, not where it was, and I don't even know if it's taken place yet.
No,
But
I think they kept that secret.
yeah, but anyway, apparently it's know that there's two ways of looking at it. Apparently, one guy described it as was yay or nay time, and I
Yeah.
heard somebody put it much more prosaically, it's shit or get off the pot time. So,
Much more vivid. Yeah.
much more about it, isn't it? Anyway, the bottom line, Jude, is it's taken 2 years to get to here, and I think Sir Jeffrey, um, our pro-consul, Mr. Heaton Harris, I think I might finally be telling the truth when he said the negotiations were over. Remember, he said that before Christmas,
Yeah.
that now it's the furniture's all in place. You can rearrange the furniture, but there's going to be no new furniture. Well, basically, what he said to the DUP, look, you can come and talk to me about whatever it is, but the talks are over, and I think that's what's happened. He's made his offer. What is it, 3.5 billion?
Yeah.
What do you call it? And there's no, as far as I can see, unless you know something I don't, there's not been one single comma, letter, or anything else changed on the Windsor framework, and it's not going to be changed because the British government just don't have the balls for it. They don't have the wool for it. They've got a deal that suits them with the EU, and they're not for changing it.
That's true. If you cast your mind back, Pat, I prophesied this only I said it would happen in September, that the DUP would get a grant in the form of fig leaf, or a fig
Yeah, I
leaf in
remember
the
you
form
saying
of a
that.
grant, and that they would
Yeah,
then sneak back. But they really have left themselves very exposed. I do think this. I heard, for example, Sam McBride saying today on the radio that he remembered this statement about how every time the unionists leave the table, when they come back to the table, they're weaker than when they left. And he says this will be the
and by the
case
way, I
here.
think it's John Hume originally said that,
What's
and
that?
other
Yeah.
people have taken credit for it. But I'm
Aye.
not 100% certain, but I'm pretty sure
Aye.
Hume said that.
Oh, aye. Well, yeah, he did, right? They do seem to be weakening themselves, but they always sell, you see, they always sell the deal as being, oh, we're okay. We're okay. We're safe. It's like, what would you call it? A kind of, um,
Comfort blanket
imprisonment.
type
You want to
thing.
break out of this prison that
Uh,
we're being persecuted and we got a good deal, so we're all right for now. Sort of a garrison mentality. Um,
yeah.
how will he explain the fact, Pat, that he had 7 tests and he's not going to have one of them fulfilled, as far as I know?
Oh, well, you see, that's his big problem, Jude. In fact, I don't know if he can explain that because people like Jim Alistair are going to say, look, the bonds, an economic United Ireland is going to be turbocharged now because we can't trade the way we should with the mothership, the motherland, the mainland. and that it's going to be easier to trade with Dublin than with London. And there's probably an element of truth in that. Now, Jude, I keep making this point. Under the Good Friday Agreement, the constitutional position of Northern Ireland cannot change until people vote for it. So I think there's a lot of bollocks chat by a lot of unionists as well. But the reality is, Northern Ireland was always different. It was never part. As British essentially, that was the biggest load of rubbish. Jude, remember, we keep mentioning this. Northern Ireland was the only place that had its own parliament for 50 years.
Yeah.
Wales didn't have its own parliament. Scotland didn't have its own parliament, but Northern Ireland did. And remember, all the old ads for a lot of them for financial services is not available. This product is not available in Northern Ireland. And then, of course, when it came to things like what they called mad cow's disease.
Yeah.
The Ireland of Ireland was treated as one, not the same as Britain and Ireland, or Britain and Northern Ireland, but on the island of Ireland. So
Yes.
there's all this rubbish they're talking about. Here's the thing, Jude, where the tectonic plates of the EU and the UK meet, it's on the island of Ireland. It's not on mainland Britain. And something had to be different here anyway. But anyway, the bottom line, if it's just stop the diatribe here, is basically there will be some changes in trade and regulations in regard to trade. They're making it out to be a massive big deal.
Well,
it's not as big a deal as they're. I know you
Pat,
disagree, but I'm telling you, I'm right here.
I know you're right, but you're wrong. I think that they have a point, because the fact of the matter is they're going to be, for trade purposes, they might as well be part of the United Ireland. So I kind of understand their feelings. And the trouble for Jeffrey Donaldson is that about a year or so ago, he was agreeing with Jim Allister and company that this was the case, and they'd have to get rid of this framework, and they'd have to get rid of the protocol, and they haven't. So he really set himself up for a hiding. And it is true, I think, that psychologically, not in legal terms, but psychologically, they have been nudged out onto the ledge, at least, if not into the island of Ireland as a single unit. I have sympathy with them, but I mean, it's a rod they cut for their own back, and how they'll get past that. Jim Allister will be saying to him, 7 principles, you said, the 7 items that have been covered, and you said this was definitely, you weren't backing down, and now you back down. I don't know how he'll get past that, but I suppose Trump says stuff, and then he gets past it. So why not Jeffrey?
Jude, that's part of it. But here's the thing, Jude. I have noticed this on sort of personal conversations. Republicans, everybody says they're very upset about the fact that there's no Stormont. It's the biggest load of bollocks. They don't give a monkeys. In fact, I think, and I genuinely believe this, the strategy of Sinn Féin and the Republican movements right now is to publicly say we want it all back and all the rest of it. But I think secretly they're loving the fact that it's unionism that's destroying Northern Ireland. No, by the way, the DUP's vote has stayed very solid during this whole process. In fact, possibly has even gone up. So the way they're looking at it is we can get away with this. But it's harming the whole concept. It's harming relationships between unionism and Britain. It's harming, the people you refer to as soft nationalists. Soft nationalists are sitting watching unionism, the DUP and Jim Allister and Jimmy Brighton saying, if this is the type of people that they think that they're going to just walk all over us, it's going to be British direct rule only, not with a Dublin interference. It's like the old unionist veto. So all those soft nationalists said, see the day, I would think if you're a Republican, you're sitting back saying, the DUP is doing a far better job for our thing, our what suit. We want to get Ireland, and we're putting that case, and the DUP is doing our job for us.
Yeah. If you think about, Pat, I agree completely what you said. If you think about the history of this place for the last 100 years, 50 years, as you've often said, of misrule, bigotry, discrimination, gerrymander, etc. Then 30 years of violence. Essentially, a couple of years for trying to get civil rights, 30 years of violence, then the Good Friday Agreement, an assembly which has limped and crashed more times than enough. I think in the end, we're back to Charlie Haughey's old statement, and nobody ever seems to face up to this. Maybe this place is a failed state. It simply cannot exist.
That's a question.
It can't. They keep on trying to make it work. It's like sort of a corpse and attaching electrodes to it and giving it another jolt, jump like that and seem to be alive. I think that's
Uh,
what's happened. I really do. I don't see anywhere, and I think
Jude,
you're
right,
spot
it's
on.
failed politically.
Yeah.
It's failed politically. It's failed religiously. It's failed economically. It's failed socially. And if you look yesterday, what was it, about 150,000 people on strike? So it's failed even at that level. So Jude, go and tell me, where is the success story of Northern Ireland?
Well, even if they get this is the thing, even they get this 3.3 billion, which they probably will, and which they'll
Yeah.
then shove towards the many people who are striking, that only gets them, if you like, get their nose above the surface of the water.
The parapet.
Because in the future, how are they going to manage? They're going to be back in
Yeah.
this
Well, Jude,
in
right.
a year's time.
Our proconsul has given about 600 million. And that for the various pay deals, right? But he's also saying there has to be introduced locally fundraising measures like water charges, like doctors, whatever. Do you realize since 2019, the waiting lists in Northern Ireland have tripled? Since 2019. Like, that's basically only 4 years, trebled. You know, like, and who was it? I was chatting to somebody yesterday, and they said he knows people who are waiting for 5 years for an appointment for a replacement, waiting for an appointment, not the bloody replacement itself, for an appointment to see a consultant.
Yeah,
You
shocking.
know,
And I mean, you would know this maybe with your having a teacher in the family. Somebody was telling me that there are kids in St. Mary's Training College, and they're already got their tickets booked for Australia because they'll be starting with maybe twice as much as they get paid starting here. And even they're only to go to Scotland or England, they'd still be 5,000, 9,000 pounds better off than if they stay here. So
yeah.
if
Jude,
I was a
you must have
young
been listening to the same
unionist, I'd be
program I
asking
was
the
listening to. I
question.
think I don't know what program I was listening to. I was going up to Sligo yesterday morning. Anyway, I think it might have been the Nolan show.
Yeah.
Even though Nolan's not there. What he called, somebody was on and said the kids they can't even fill the training colleges anymore because teaching in Northern Ireland is now considered as such the pay is so bad. Jude, the number now the teachers in the Republic are paid better, but
Oh, much better. Much better.
but much better. But hey, and it's not a particularly attractive position in a lot of places in the south now. But geez, compared to the north, it's nirvana.
I think, you see, I think if I was a unionist, that's the kind of thing I'd worry about, because
Yeah.
people really will say, regardless of the politics, they'll say, my son's going to start looking for a job. He's got a job,
Yeah.
but he's going to be getting, £9,000 less than somebody in London or somebody in Manchester.
Yeah.
Is this a good idea, being, or even in the Republic? So is this a good
Yeah.
idea to be part of this UK? I think that'll really rot the sort of foundations of
Right,
it.
Jude, my eldest son went to university in England, and at one stage he and his wife, she's English, and they were seriously. I remember them chatting about it. They thought that, they weren't going to come back to Northern Ireland, or they were, well, they were going to go to Scotland. Or were going to go to Scotland because
Yeah.
there was two advantages. The pay was better, obviously, and secondly, they could have a nice lifestyle. So and you could buy housing at a reasonable price in many parts of Scotland. So, right, can you imagine you qualify as a teacher and you look across the pond and you can come home on a ferry every weekend? Like, it's not very far. You get a ferry over at Cairn Ryan or whatever, and back Andy Larn, and it's what, 3 hours or 2.5 hours.
Yeah,
So, right,
yeah.
bottom line, you go over to Scotland and you can earn up to 9,000 a year more.
You see, Crawley today was on. The last part of his program was about why this Northern Ireland is a wonderful place, what it is that
Yeah.
draws people, and wonderful scenery, and there's
By the way, the people are lovely, genuinely
studio.
are. He said,
What the Pat? They're no more lovely. In fact, in some ways, they're much less lovely than the people of Donegal, or people of Mayo, or the people of Kerry, or the people of Dublin. I don't. This notion we have, oh Jesus, the people of the north, they're the salt of the earth. They are the arse. There's nice people and there's bad people, the same as everywhere else. They're lively people, and other times they get your wick, and you just want to get shot at them. And if I was a young person, like your son, for example, when he was considering where he's going to go, I don't think he would have lost out that much if he had. I mean, not lose out financially if he goes to somewhere else in the north, but I don't think you lose out culturally a great deal by not living in the north of Ireland. I mean, it is a
Yeah.
divided society. As I say, it's a failed state. And it's not failed state. I used to know schools that were running down because they couldn't get pupils. And it was a depressing sort of experience to go into that school because you felt
Uh,
things are falling apart here. And that's
uh,
that's exactly the feeling I get here. When I looked at
uh,
the TV yesterday and saw those thousands of people out striking because they can't
and
get
standing in the
paid.
cold and the wet and the
And
snow.
meanwhile, Jeffrey's saying, "Oh no, we're not going to take the 3.3 billion. Oh, here we're our seven pledges, and will Lord Dodds agree with it?" You know, you want to say, "Forget it, forget it. It's
Uh,
not Nirvana, and it's
yeah.
not going
But,
to be anything like
but
it."
like I said, let's, hey, if you just want to nail it down, if they don't take this, where we go from here, it's going to be a hell of a ride.
I think, Pat, I really think that the Shinners have their eye on, and a lot of people too have their eye on the notion of a new Ireland rather than a refreshed assembly in Stormont. We
And
do,
I think Michelle O'Neill was trying to say, if this place doesn't come back now, it'll never come back. That was
well,
basically what she was saying.
I think she's right too. I think she's right.
Uh,
Well, I can't say.
well, she didn't quite put it like that, but Jude, I think that was the implication of
Yeah,
what she
yeah.
was saying.
Well, there was something else I wanted to say about that now, but I'm not sure what it was. Okay, well, let's move on a bit and consider the idea of a new Ireland, Pat. The Irish Times, as you probably noticed, is doing a survey of
Yeah,
different elements that might go into a new, have to be considered for a new Ireland. Now, it's not by any means a citizens' assembly, which is what you really need, but they've done surveys on a variety of things, and the one that they have published today or was yesterday is this question of being in the Commonwealth.
Commonwealth, yeah.
You know, a new Ireland be part of would it be part of the British Commonwealth? And the report is that when they asked people, would you like to be part of the Commonwealth, and they emphasized the idea of post-colonial, that
Yeah,
51% of people said no. That's the South now. Said no, we don't
yeah,
want it. But they said whenever they emphasized that there were many republics in the
yeah,
British Commonwealth and that their own head of state and so on, the number of people opposed to being part of the Commonwealth in the new Ireland went down to 39%. Now,
yeah.
I'll tell you very quickly my view on this, and then you can tell me yours. I don't think that it's a really good outcome to have, if you say, I'm going to emphasize the good things, and 39% of people say, no way, I don't want it. I think 39% is better than 51, but it's not much better. What do you think?
No, 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 no. Someone I was involved in a project some time back. You know, it doesn't matter. We were looking at about the possibility of a new Ireland, and one of the things that came up was all these sort of things was possibly rejoining the Commonwealth
Yeah.
and so on. And I just threw it out there on the basis, look, if I'd give a comfort blanket to unionists, and I mentioned this to a couple of people who I would
Aye.
consider very, very moderate people, and I genuinely mean that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they turned it down. Not at all, Pat. We're not going back to being under British rule. And I tried to explain, no, I wasn't talking about being British rule again.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
talking about a Commonwealth that,
Mm.
that I very pointed, you're after making Jude, that a lot of them are republics, and it's not like the old thing. And they still didn't buy it. They still didn't
Yeah.
want it.
Well,
So you see, the Commonwealth, I think, brings with it implicit Britishness. And I think Alan said, hey, wait a minute, the Republic of Ireland as a state has been very successful without all that, and without the sort of the anchor of Britain
uh-huh.
that we can all sail on our own, and that's what they want to keep
Well,
going.
Pat De Valera used to, when he wanted to find out what the Irish people were thinking, he used to go off and
He
look
looked
into his
into his
own
own
heart.
heart.
I want you to look into your own heart. Would you be agreeable to in a new Ireland being part of the Commonwealth?
Yeah, I would, but I did on the basis that it was a Commonwealth that was meant to look after the interests of each other, and that there's none of that sort of old the Queen at the head of it and all that sort of bollocks.
Well, she
No,
would
no,
be.
no.
She is a nominal head of the
I want the
Commonwealth.
head now. I mean the king.
The king. That's right. Sorry, I forgot about that. Forgot that. Sorry, Your Majesty. I'll
Apologies,
say a
man.
prayer for you tonight. But he is the head of it. So would that put you
Yeah.
off? Would that put you off?
Jude, if it was a Commonwealth in the sense, look, Britain's part of it, Australia's part of it, New Zealand's part of it, Zambia or what the hell is part of it, and it's all, but it's a nation or it's a Commonwealth of equals. I'll join that.
But
on
would
the
you be
basis,
okay with
on the
King
basis,
Charles
by the
being
way,
the head of
that
it?
I'm reaching out to my unionist friends, but I'm
Hmm.
not joining some sort of place where we're what would you say, sub importance that the main people are the Brits. Bollocks that I'm not. I
Oh,
won't join that.
oh no. Well, I think somebody better explain to them what the idea of the Commonwealth is. And I think it's a bit daft for the Irish Times to say, oh, we'll put it in post-colonial terms and then we'll get this percentage. We'll put it in terms of members of the Commonwealth being republics and so on, and we'll get this percentage. I frankly think it doesn't matter a damn. It's only an old boys club. It doesn't matter. It
Yeah.
really doesn't. I feel the same way about the flag. I feel the same way about the anthem. Now, I know that people go nuts about that, but I think that's very silly. It's only a song. It's only a
No,
tune.
no, no. You've asked me. Are you? Would you be willing to change them, or would you say
Oh,
not a
I'd be
chance?
perfectly willing to change them. I don't think I won't say, look, if I have a new Ireland Island system, a new flag, no. But if a
No.
consensus Irish people want that, fine with me. And
Yes,
likewise,
well,
likewise,
you're enunciating my position as well, Jude. What you're
well,
saying, I agree
I
with.
think
But
that's
let's keep
fair.
going.
I must be right then. If I'm obviously I'm right, but it's true. I'll tell you what worries me. Why did the Irish Times focus on this Commonwealth thing, which is such an airy fairy thing? I would like them to have focused on things like health. Maybe they have now, but I'd like them. That's what should be headlined. Health. What kind of health system would you accept in a new
Yeah,
Ireland? Or what system of education would you accept in a new Ireland? Or
yeah.
what
What sort of
situation
policing?
in housing? Things that
Uh,
are real. The one thing they was sort of down to earth that they did survey was tax. And they found that
yeah,
people said, well, they asked them, first of all, are you in favor of United Ireland? They said, oh, yeah, 70% or something. And then they said, if it meant you had to pay more taxes, would you? And the numbers shrank quite a bit. But I
uh,
think
uh,
that is a wee bit devious. I
yeah,
think, again, the way you frame the question, if they'd started with the question of, would you be prepared to have a certain amount of more money paid in tax in a new Ireland
yeah,
so that we could
yeah,
have an integrated country? I think if they'd said that first, you might have got a different
yeah.
answer. But if you
Yeah,
say, first
you
of
know,
all,
a lot. I know the old journalistic trick. You know, where you still beating your wife, and you say no. You know, no. Jude Collins yesterday confirmed he's no longer beating his wife. So it all depends on how the question is asked. Look, you
yeah,
were never beating your wife in the first place, but the question. So you know, I heard a guy on uh, RT News today. He says, "Have you asked a question, or you know, would you like more houses built?" Everybody's going to say yes. But he
yeah.
says, if you ask the question, would you like to pay more tax, and would you like your, would you like to be in a sort of a mortgage deficit? He says people will say no.
Aye, aye. Well, listen, I want to come on to a point that sort of seems to go off, but I think it's relevant. The Irish Times had an editorial, right, and they were critical
Yeah,
of um, the Leo Varadkar and Micheál Martin and this president of China that came. They said that
yeah,
essentially the Irish government, the Southern government, Dublin government, was putting beef before human rights in China.
yeah.
I'm tempted to tell you what I think, but you tell me what you think, and then I'll explain to you if you're right or not.
Yeah, you know, so Jude, what I think they should raise this issue. I think Ireland's what would you say, batting average with China would be very, very low. And I don't think the Chinese are going to pay a lot of attention to what Leo Varadkar and all this said. No, but having said that, I think there's an onus on countries like Ireland to actually raise this issue. But and by the way, Jude, I think as in the Daggers or what UAGH or you know a million of them are in sort of camps. So I think it is a big issue. But having said that, you know, Jude, I'm not sure like how much influence would Ireland have with the president of China? What 600 or 800 million people? We have
Right.
what 3.5 million or
Uh,
4.5
uh,
million?
well, fair enough. Ireland is a weak unit, a weak state.
Yeah,
But, I mean, you can only do what you can do,
yeah,
You
yeah,
can only
exactly.
follow your conscience. Where I would take them to task is, I think they should, of course, raise the question of human rights with China every time. But
Yeah,
they've managed to get a beef deal, and good for them. That's great. But I would like to see when or where will they show their contempt for the policy of Israel and human rights.
yeah,
They've been watching this on the TV for the last couple of months where they're being slaughtered. It's not a question of putting people in prison, it's killing people. babies,
Yeah.
women, the lot, buildings, everything. So where is the, have they lodged a complaint to Israel for their actions? Have they taken the ambassador in, given her a dressing down and kicked her out? Or even no, let her stay, but tell her what, as far as Ireland is concerned. If the South is really concerned about human rights, you should start with the one that's really pressing in most people's conscience at the
Well, Jude,
moment,
here's the
and that's
point. We
Israel.
all know it's simple. They're all scared shitless of the Americans. The Americans are leaning on a lot of European countries not to have a go at Israel. And Ireland is particularly, what we say, prone to being leaned on because we have so much American foreign direct investment, massive big companies here and so on. And the Americans threatened several small countries apparently at the UN that support and projects would be after they voted in favor of the motion for the South Africans. The Americans lean on people big time. They basically blackmail them into supporting the American position. But the Brits, they won't say bugger all. The EU won't say bugger all.
But Pat, do you think that those big foreign direct investment companies are here because they like Irish people? I would have thought they're here because it's good business.
But someone, look at the. Imagine, APAC has bought. Good, but anybody with a brain can see it. APAC, the American Israel people have bought. One senior American politician has spoken out about what's happening in Gaza. There's a massacre, there's a slaughter, there's a genocide. And you'd think just one human being in power in America would say, look, I don't like what's going on here. One has spoken out. By the way, the only one who's spoken out, if you call it, is Bernie Sanders. And Bernie Sanders is actually Jewish. And he knows he's got the what
gets a pass on being
he can't be accused of anti-Semitism or that crap.
Yeah. Well, I just think that, well, first of all, I don't think that the foreign direct investment would shrink or companies would fold their tent and take off if Ireland spoke up and said, stop killing people to Israel.
Yeah.
I really don't think they would. And I think it's time that Ireland, if they're going to have any sort of credibility internationally, they should say it.
Hold on a minute. You know as well as I do, if there was any moral value in our politicians, they would say to Joe Biden, see March 17th, Joe, go stuff it. And Joe needs the Irish vote, by the way, big time. And saying we are not going along on this, and we're no bowl of shamrocks, and we're protesting. Instead of that, you'll get the usual. The American influence is so mighty that we need to keep on. And look at the Brits. Jesus, all the if somebody said shit, the British would say where. The whole thing, Jude, is a joke. They simply will not. The American influence right now, Jude, I don't know how long if any other country was doing what this really was, and they're doing it in front of us. Every night on our TV, we can see children dying on Israel. We can see infrastructure blown to bits, hospitals blown to bits, and all the rest of it. And we're sitting watching it on our TVs. And hey, we have politicians coming on saying no, they have a right to defend themselves. I think across Europe, but it's now about 70% of the population want a ceasefire. Yet the politicians do not reflect what the people want.
Well, I see where Chile and Brazil and Mexico, Mexico are taking a case against.
Are joining in the case, and more countries are
to prosecute the Israelis for war crimes.
War crimes.
Do you really think Netanyahu will ever be put in the dock? I don't think so, Pat. I'll tell you.
Yeah, by the way, Jude, we've only 4 minutes left.
I'm looking at it.
Brought up the subject. Netanyahu came on today or last night and said there will be no two-state solution. Jude, let's get this clear. Netanyahu has never wanted a two-state. He's blocked the two-state solution. He said the Oslo Accords will never happen. There'll be no. He's actually been caught on the record. On the record. The camera was still on, and it was being recorded. He said there'll be no two-state solution on his watch. He said that several years ago. He has blocked every chance. They don't want peace, Jude. They want victory.
But the irony, Pat, is that they say that Netanyahu is hugely unpopular in his own country. However, let me. We've gone over this many times, but let's move sideways a wee bit. I'm thinking that the immigrant problem was a bomb went off in Dublin, was it?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
a man was killed. Now we don't know the
yeah,
circumstances of that or whatever,
yeah.
but why is it that the government has got this massive problem? We've got immigration, and people are saying, look, Mayo, for example, said, we're full. We can't take any more. We're taking a fair share. And other people say, you didn't consult us earlier. When will the government in the South lay out, A, how many refugees have been taken into Ireland? B, how much did each county take? And see what are their plans for the future. If there's more coming in, how are they going to make decisions? This should be laid out for people to see. We don't know. I don't know. Do you know how many people are
So, do you know what you're after saying there? It actually sounds so logical. I know the government will never take it on board, but you're 100% right. Jude, apparently we have taken on the equivalent of County Galway in about this last 3 years. A new County Galway. Um, like, okay, I'll give the government this. No one could have predicted that Russia was going to invade Ukraine.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the point, and so on. And but Jude, it's very. I was told quite recently. I think I mentioned it to you before that there's people in Donegal. There are people in Donegal, and Donegal is by no means the biggest, making 100,000 a week on this thing about housing refugees. Jude, there's a massive problem in the town of Rosscray. There was one hotel there where weddings were held, funeral masses, or receptions were held, and whatever. And they've now the money's so good they've decided that they're going to house what do you call it, refugees, and they've shut down. There's going to be no more dances in the place. There's going to be no more weddings, receptions, and all the rest of it. And there's been protests outside. And the point is, the locals are saying, "Wait a minute, look, no one told us about this. So we're now, if we want to have a wedding, if we want to have a funeral reception afterwards, or we want to do anything, these sort of things, the hotels and the government now are scrambling. They're saying they're going to open an old hotel that closed."
But that's limping from crisis to crisis throughout the state.
Yeah.
What they should do is lay their cards on the table, tell people the truth, and you'd be surprised how logical Irish people would be. We're a very hospitable people. We believe in fairness. So, I mean, if Mayo is full, then that should be on the. Everybody should know that. It's ridiculous that they don't.
And by the way, just before, Denmark apparently have just what you've said there. They have said we can't take any more.
Well, if that's the case for Ireland, I have no problem with them saying, sorry, nobody else can come in. But tell us, this thing with we're children, or your children, your state, not mine, your children, and we'll work it out for you, and then we'll tell you, and maybe we'll hope you like it. If you don't, oh, geez, we'll have to go back and pretend we're doing something else. We're out of time, Pat. Say something good. Tell me, were you sun worshipping when you were away?
Just having a break. Me and me about being retired, cheap flights.
Wasn't any nudist beaches around there, was there?
No, not beaches. Jesus,
I have a picture of my wife standing, pointing to a sign in Vancouver saying "nudist beach this way," which is wearing her clothes.
On that
okay, thanks, Pat. Talk to you again.
Best, Jude.
Okay,
bye, Jude. See you later.